Well, awesome. Our Bethel kids are amazing. We had a great time. Actually, we may have some Bethel kids with us this morning. Yeah, you can give a round of applause to those kids. They're awesome. Well, today I want to do something a little different. We're going to actually look back at 2019 and see what God did for us. We may be like the kids where we're trying to think about, okay, what did God do in 2019? And actually, when I was pondering this message, I was thinking, okay, so what did God actually do, or what are some big moments in my life? And I think if you're like me, it's hard to remember the big moments, or it's hard to remember the things that kind of make an impact. We tend to think about negative things more than we do positive things. So, for example, do you remember where you were when the Challenger shuttle exploded after it took off? Do you remember where you were? Anybody? You got to be kind of old for that, but I mean, 1989? Yes? Okay. So if you remember where you were, that was kind of a big, or sorry, 1986. I said 89. That's not right. 86. So if you remember where you were, that was kind of an earth-shattering moment, especially for students at the time. I was in school at the time. What about when the Berlin Wall fell? Do you remember where you were when the Berlin Wall fell in 1989? I'm about to get to you young guys here in a second, okay? What about in April 19th, 1995, when the Oklahoma City bombing happened? Do you remember where you were? You remember how you felt? That was an interesting moment, wasn't it? What about September 11th, 2001? You remember where you were? You remember how you felt? It was really simple for me to come up with some difficult moments, but it was a little harder to come up with some positive moments. For example, there's some good ones here, and without being controversial at all, in 2008, the United States elected its first African-American president. That's a pretty monumental thing for our country, considering our history. But that was a big moment and it's kind of a turning point for our country. What about in 2010, when 33 men were trapped in a Chilean mine and they were rescued after 69 days? You remember that? That was kind of a big moment where people were rescued, they were trapped. What about in 2018, just last year, when those 12 boys were trapped in a cave in Thailand, and they went in miles into the cave and found these boys and rescued them? You remember that? That was kind of a big moment, and actually it still is affecting us today. I just read that yesterday a man, one of the military men that rescued the children, passed away yesterday from an infection he caught while he was in the cave. And so that's a story that's kind of still going forward, and those boys have signed a deal with Netflix, and there's going to be a Netflix miniseries about that event. That was a big moment of rescue. 2019, this past year, there was something really big that happened in April, and I'm probably the only one that cares, but there was the first picture of a black hole in space happened this year in April. Anybody else care about that? All right, one other person. Thank you. Yes, another one back there. Yes, this is kind of a moment that most people could care less about, but to see something that was scientifically kind of a theory, to actually see in a picture was pretty cool. It looked like the eye of Sauron, from the Lord of the Rings. Well, okay, you guys probably don't care about that either, but it was kind of a big moment for me. And as I was thinking about this, I don't know if you realize this, but it only takes 3 seconds for our minds to record and to hold on to a bad experience or a bad interaction with someone, a negative interaction. Our minds immediately grab, and our brains have a neuroplasticity where we grab a negative thought or a negative interaction, and it ingrains in our mind in 3 seconds. But a positive interaction, or an interaction of gratefulness, takes 30 to 60 seconds for us to create the same neural pathways in our minds. And so if you think about it, when you're interacting with someone and they say something positive, like, man, that was so good, most of us are like, that was no big deal, and we move on. We need to sit in the moment and remember and actually interact with someone that is showing gratitude, because it takes a little bit of time for our minds to adjust and our minds to create a pathway of thankfulness. And so this morning, what I want to do is I want us to remember some really cool things that happened in 2019. I want us to remember some experiences we had here at Bethel Community Church and what God has done bringing us to the end of 2019. This is not only the last Sunday of the year, but this is the last Sunday of the decade. We're entering into a new decade, into a new year, and it's kind of a big moment. It's a big moment that we can actually celebrate. If we don't remember where we came from, we're destined to fall in the traps and repeat our past mistakes. If we don't remember the past, then we're kind of tempted to be ungrateful. We need to remember what God has done for us and what God has done through us. There's a passage I want us to read in Joshua chapter 4. This passage is specifically about the children of Israel. The children of Israel had been wandering in the desert for 40 years. If you read in the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis through Deuteronomy, we'll see about the first family, the first nation, kind of a nation that God chose. We get to the end of the first 5 books of the Bible, and we see that this nation of Israel, through grumbling and complaining and forgetting who God was, they were actually in the promised, or in the desert, wandering around for 40 years. Well, they finally get to a place where they can enter into the promised land, and Joshua, the leader, tells them they need to remember. They need to remember what God has done in order to continue them on a path about what he is going to do in the future. And so if you look in Joshua chapter 4, if you have your Bibles, turn there. It's going to be on here on the screen, and then you also can use your Bible app and follow along there in Joshua chapter 4. It says there in verse 1, it says, "When all the people had crossed the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, 'Now choose 12 men, one from each tribe. Tell them, take 12 stones from the very place where the priests are standing in the middle of the Jordan, carry them out, and pile them up at a place where you will camp tonight.'" So God gave this command to Joshua, the leader, and he said, hey, they're going to cross into the Jordan. And what's going to happen is a miracle is going to happen. The Jordan is going to stop flowing while the Ark of the Covenant is in the middle of the Jordan. And so the water stops flowing. He says, now while those priests are there around the ark, I want 12 men to go in and pick up big boulders and carry them out onto the other side of the Jordan into the promised land. And it says there in verse 4, it says, "So Joshua called together the 12 men he had chosen, one from each of the tribes of Israel. He told them, 'Go into the middle of the Jordan and in front of the ark of the Lord your God. Each of you must pick up one stone and carry it out on your shoulder.'" So we're talking big boulders there. It says 12 stones in all, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. "We will use these stones to build a memorial. In the future, your children will ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' Then you can tell them, 'They remind us that the Jordan River stopped flowing when the ark of the Lord's covenant went across. These stones will stand as a memorial among the people of Israel forever.'" Each one of these stones had a memory for the tribes of Israel as they crossed the Jordan, and they were just going to build a monument in order for them to look at and remember all the good that God had done. So in verse 8 it says, "So the men did as Joshua had commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan River, one for each tribe, just as the Lord had told Joshua. They carried them to the place where they camped for the night and constructed the memorial there." You know, it's really good to remember. It's good to let your mind go back and remember the good that God has done. And I'm sure there's certain memories that are easy for you to pull up, and there's other memories that take a little bit more effort, but it's really good to remember. Number one, it's good to remember where you came from. If you're here this morning and you've met Jesus Christ, it is really good to remember that day that Jesus called you from death to life. It's good to remember that day that in your heart you felt a longing towards God, and he came in and changed you and transformed you. Because that day or that season in your life is a moment that you need to remember when things are difficult, when you begin to doubt, when you begin to have fear about, am I really on the right path? Remember that day that Jesus called you from your sin into a life of holiness, into a life of following him. And so remembering where you come from is important. Also, remember who you are, and then remember whose you are. My kids, every single day, I ask them a question. We're on our way to school, and I drop them off in the morning, and I say, "Hey, kids, represent." And I just say, "Represent." And they know exactly what I'm saying when I say represent. I said, "Who are you going to represent today?" And Max and Lily kind of go back and forth. "We're going to represent the Rotens." "Yes, you're going to represent the Rotens because you're not on your own. You represent our family. Represent the Rotens." "We're also going to represent ourselves." "Yes, you're going to represent yourself." And then the third thing is we're going to represent Jesus. And so it took a while to coach them through this, but I say that. And so now I say, how are you going to represent today? And usually Max, he's usually the first one to pop up, and he says, we're going to love. We're going to love well today. Well, what does that mean? And so we've worked on it like, okay, you're going to be nice to someone. You're going to hold the door for someone. You're going to give someone a snack. You're going to give someone a place in line, or you're going to not tattle on somebody, okay, unless they're doing something naughty. I mean, that's different. But we're going to represent well by loving well, okay? Well, it's good to remember where we came from, who we are, and whose we are. Something monumental happened at Bethel Community Church in 2016. In 2016, the group of people here at the church came together and realized that God was calling us to a different direction. And that moment, we launched Bethel Community Church in April of 2016. But this started in a meeting in December of 2015 in the office. There were men that were gathered together, and in this meeting, God showed up and directed us to do a change that was going to be life-changing and life-altering for Bethel Community Church. Many of you actually are sitting here this morning because of that experience in 2015. If it wouldn't have been for those men coming together and seeking God and God changing the direction of our church and actually starting and launching Bethel Community Church in 2016, some of you may not be sitting here today, and that's a celebration on what God has done and God has not done with our church yet. Over the past few years, we've seen God and work some incredible ways, and we've seen Him bring person after person that needs not only encouragement, but needs a spiritual family. There's some things to celebrate and remember, but I want us to start by remembering some things that are a little more difficult to remember, things that are a little harder. You know that our church has experienced loss this last year. 5 people that are part of Bethel, the Bethel family, have actually passed on into eternity. They're now rejoicing in the presence of the Father. And we started this year, 2019, with the passing of our original First Lady here at Bethel, Miss Peggy Bradford. She was a beautiful person, and she stepped into eternity this year, 2019. We also saw Miss Alma Duke. Miss Alma was a longtime member of Bethel, and she passed into eternity this year. And if you didn't know her, I interacted with her a lot over 20 years ago. And there was this one Wednesday night she came in, and there was this strange smell. They usually smelled like Mexican, but this one time they smelled different, and it smelled a little bit like a skunk. Well, come to find out, a skunk had crawled in their home and sprayed her and her clothes, and she smelled like a skunk for weeks. I was like, we got to do something about this skunk smell. Well, Miss Alma stepped into eternity this year, and she's having a celebration skunk-free with the Savior. Also, Dwayne McQuirtry, if you guys didn't get to meet him, he had been coming to Bethel for a little over a year, and over Labor Day, he passed away. He loved Bethel. God had began changing his life as an encounter with Jesus at Bethel, and he could not wait to celebrate and serve, and he always had a smile on his face. Also this year, our good friend Earl Hutchison passed away. It was a man that loved Bethel. They've been coming for about a year, him and his wife. Miss Francis still comes to our church, but Earl passed away. And then this last week, day before Christmas Eve, our friend Eddie Christensen passed away. We're going to have his memorial service on January 6th at 10 o'clock. But this year has been a year of loss, yet each one of these people has encountered Jesus. And each one of these people are now celebrating in the presence of God. And as you and I reflect on what was and what's coming, we're going to get to join them someday to celebrate for eternity with Jesus. I want to share some things that have happened this year, and it's okay to celebrate, okay? Most times we don't talk back, we don't get back and forth, but it's okay to celebrate and to clap and to appreciate what God has done, because these are things that should bring joy not only to our lives, but also to the future of what God is doing at Bethel, okay? So I'm going to do a test, and this is the last time I'm going to do a test, but I want you guys to clap and maybe woo-hoo or something like that, okay? Because we're going to talk about some really cool things. So I'm going to coach you this time like I do my kids. Now, I'm not dad, but, I'm going to coach you. And then next time you guys are going to do it on your own, okay? All right? Is that okay? All right, so I'm going to do a count of 3. You're going to go whoo or clap or whatever you want to do, okay? 1, 2, 3. Hey! Man, that was easy. All right, very good. So this year we started the Compassion Initiative. If you don't know what the Compassion Initiative is, just go to the board out there. It's about church planting internationally, church planting in Oklahoma. It's about foster care and adoption. It's about mentoring young people in school. And then it's also about alleviating homelessness and hunger. And so our Compassion Initiative started this year. We established a foster care fund, and we fully funded a church plant in Mongolia. And that's an incredible thing. It's an incredible thing. If you're new to Bethel in 2019, would you just raise your hand if you're new to Bethel in 2019? All right, look around, look around. That's awesome. We've seen people's lives change. We've seen people give their lives to Jesus Christ. We've seen people baptized. Mary, would you come to the platform? Mary actually has a story she's going to tell. And Mary, got to grab your microphone. Mary actually has come to Bethel, and God has done a work in her life. And I'm going to let her tell us what 2019 means to her with Bethel.
Good morning. Oh, I'm supposed to start.
2019 mean to you? What has 2019 done for you at Bethel?
So 2019 at Bethel, Bethel in a sense has been like a halfway house for me, a spiritual one. I was in the middle of deconstructing my faith, and I really just needed assistance reconstructing it to better my life. And I was in a limbo of lies where I just thought I wasn't good enough for God to use me. And being rebaptized at Bethel really just helped me reclaim my relationship with Jesus for myself, and to just refocus on, my mission with God.
That's awesome. And you have a son, Eli, and he comes and he runs around with the kids upstairs. Tell us what like Bethel has meant to you and Eli together.
Well, something I didn't mention last service is that one of the things that has really been good for Elijah and I both has been Bethel Mommy and Me Playdate. That's usually on Tuesdays, and it's nice sometimes to do things outside of the church and have that environment where he can play with other kids and interact with them and be safe, while I'm able to, have adult interaction and connect with other women that aren't necessarily like me but have the same values and stuff. So that's been a real blessing.
Awesome. So 2019 has been kind of a big shift for you. What is the one, like if you could just boil it down to one thing, what's the one thing that Bethel means in 2019 and that you're looking forward to going in 2020?
Well, one of the words that kept popping up when I was thinking of what to say today was revive. One of the things I think that God has used Bethel to do is revive and restore some things that were already within me, just so that, I could stay recharged and move forward. So
Revive, restore, and recharge.
Yes.
Oh, man, you didn't even
A
mean
lot
to do
of
that, but that was
rewords.
good. That was good. What I like about Mary is that she doesn't wear a mask or anything. She is who she is, and she's welcome at Bethel because all of us are the same way. We're all in this process, and we don't want to be fake. And so we appreciate you, Mary, and we appreciate your love for Bethel and your involvement in Bethel. Let's give Mary a round of applause.
Yay, thank you. Thank you.
It's a blessing to get to interact with people and how God has changed people around us. And Mary is kind of a testament to that, and it's a blessing to partner with her and Eli as they find and follow Jesus. It really has been a blessing. I asked her last week, I said, so what was the biggest thing that Bethel has done for you? And she goes, well, I've had to change my privacy setting on Facebook. So that was like, okay, so whatever that means. Okay, all right. That was extra. All right. One thing that we've done this year in 2019 is we've added a second service. As many of you know, there's a 9:30 and 11 service. And as we've added a service, one thing that God has done with our attendance is God has added 30 people to our weekend attendance over the last 8 weeks. And it's been really cool to make space for more people. Along with that, it's given many of you an opportunity to go to a service and attend a service, so serve in a service. So Go One, Serve One has been a really fun thing. Our volunteers has increased 15% from 121 people to 144 people just in 2019. That's an awesome, awesome thing. Also, a big part of what we've done this last year is in our giving. I'm going to give you some kind of stats and some stuff that's happening with giving. I mentioned earlier that we funded a church plant in Mongolia. This year alone, 2019, $25,840 came into the Mongolia church plant. You pair that with 2018's giving, over $35,000 has come in for the Mongolia church plant through Bethel Giving. That is awesome. We have given away $55,103, not only locally, but internationally. That's an awesome thing. Compassionate Hands, which is a local ministry, we've given them $4,000 just this year alone to continue the mission of serving the elderly and the disabled here in our community. It's been an awesome thing to be able to give, to give back. And so a big part of Bethel, when you give to Bethel every week, a portion of what you give leaves this place to bless people around us. And so I want to thank you for that. Also, on giving, we have 48 brand new donors this year that gave for the first time in 2019. That's incredible. We also have the lobby. So the lobby just got started. We wanted to be done by the end of the year, but we'll finish that in 2020. But the lobby is because of your generosity. Also, if you've not heard of Project 19, it's a project that we have for a village in Guatemala. It's called El Socorro, Guatemala, and it's where we're providing clean air, clean water, also education for the kids, and then also some spiritual formation. And so this is something brand new that was started in 2019 with Coffee Slingers. If you'd like to go, by the way, kind of a plug, in February there's going to be a trip to go and see what God's doing there in Guatemala. Also, our students. We have, do you guys know what Coffee for Camper is? This is something we started in 2018, but really 2019 is the first time that it actually came to light. Well, Coffee for Camper is giving up a cup of coffee every week to send a camper to camp. And so this last year, because of your generosity, we got to double our camp attendance with our students and young adults. And so that's an awesome thing. We sent twice as many kids to camp. And many of you know that camp is one of the biggest places where you can see life change and experience life change. And so we're so excited about that. And I think, what's that? $7 a week. Thank you, Christy. $7 a week, and you can send a camper to camp. And so if you're not involved in that, why don't you get involved right now? You can go to our website, and you can just automate it, and so you don't even think about it. So $7 a week will send a camper to camp. One thing that we do in our outreach is we're involved in something called Pay It Forward. This is something that started last year. Is Carter here, or did he run away? Here he is, right here. Carter, why don't you come up here? I'm going to put him on the spot. I'm going to have him come talk. Round of applause for Carter Bradford. Carter, why don't you
Definitely
have a
knew
seat?
about this before.
Yes, I prepped him right now. Carter, so 2019, we got to partner with you and Pay It Forward, and then we're doing it again. Or we did it in 2018, now we're doing it again in 2019. So tell us what this has kind of meant, and to you specifically with Bethel getting behind you. What has Bethel meant to you in 2019 for Pay It Forward?
Yeah, well, it just started at the University of Tulsa, and it was just specifically through Tulsa and through students. If you guys don't know what it is, it's students giving their extra meals to us. We package them and take them to people around Tulsa. And so it was just an organization through the school. But, through our connections at Bethel, it was really cool because I was able to talk to Ray and then everyone at the church. It was literally like my mom would ask people at the church to give plastic bags or clothes. And literally, we had trucks full every time she would ask. It was like the next week. And it was just incredible, the people's giving and what they gave. And so it's just been such a support. And you guys don't know, like, what it means to people when we go out and give them a shirt or shoes. And they just go up and say, like, this is what I needed. Like, or like people at apartments who be like, we just ran out of food and we didn't know what we were going to do. And so, like, your guys' generosity and what Bethel has done has just, like, been amazing.
So if you were here this last year, you preached for the first time at Bethel this last year. Awesome job. Did a great job. He's going to be preaching again this year, so don't miss that. Tell us another big thing that happened in 2019 in your life. I mean, I think it's kind of big. I'm not sure. But something, why don't you say that? And, of course, it's all because of Bethel and all because of your connections here. That's really what it is, right? You were born at Bethel, right?
True.
Okay.
Well, I mean, okay, so this summer, I'll start from the beginning, right?
Quick, you have 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
Well, Ray, I was looking to go and work at a church this summer, and Ray gave me a few options of people he knew through BBFI, a Baptist kind of group, and I found Crosspoint Church in California, and someone was working at Crosspoint that I met, and we got to know each other, and now we're engaged. So.
All right, awesome. All right. So really we can say it's because of Bethel that you met Emily, and now you guys are engaged to be married sometime soon, right? It was supposed to be next summer, but I think we're going to move it up to next week. Is that what it was? No. Oh, okay, no. Okay, I'm kidding. Sorry, Emily. I didn't mean to scare you. If you haven't met Emily, she's also here this morning, so make sure you meet her. How can people get involved and Pay It Forward, Carter?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is like the next coming months, I know a lot of people have already given clothes, but the next coming months it's going to get colder. And so the more clothes you can get, we'll keep it, and we can even store it until next year and whatnot. And so clothes, plastic bags, we'll always take more plastic bags to give out because they have brown paper bags, but they always rip. And so that's the better way. And yeah, just staying connected with us is the big thing. And we take whatever funds we get, and we make care packages and other things too. And so that's always a good thing. But yeah, just
can they come and
supporting.
Actually serve with you?
Yeah.
When are those serving times?
So yeah, if you guys want, I know it's in Tulsa, so it's a couple-hour drive. But if you guys ever want to, at 4 every Friday afternoon, it's going to be starting January 19th again, whatever that week is, that Friday. But every Friday night at 4 p.m., we start packaging meals, and at 5, we'll take those meals out, we'll take clothes out, and we'll give them to homeless around Tulsa.
Taylor and I went, and it's been life-changing, so I encourage you to get involved if you'd like to get involved. Let's give a round of applause to Carter. All right, Emily, I'm going to have you come up. No, I'm just kidding. No, you don't have to come up, Emily. God is really good to allow us to reach out into our community and Pay It Forward as an organization that we're excited to do that. Here locally, we have several things that we do with the children in our community, but also to reach out. Bethel Community Church means that we want to be ingrained and involved in the community, engaged in the community. And so there's a thing we do every year in May. It's called Festival of the Child. This last year, we gave away 760 backpacks, 760 stress balls to the children here in the community. And many of you served that event, and I appreciate you for that. Also, Summer Fun Days. This year, we went to 111 people on Wednesdays in the summer. The 2018, we had 88 that were coming on Wednesday. So we have 88 to 111. That grew, which was awesome. We also had Light Up the Night, which is our outreach into the community where we light up the night. 10 more volunteers, 2 more locations. We had people actually connecting with our church, and we've seen our church grow because of these community involvements. And so I'm really proud of all of you, and I'm excited to get into our community more in 2020. Also, as part of our outreach, do you guys know that we do a podcast? Anybody know that? So if you miss a Sunday, you can download on your device a podcatcher, whether it's Apple or it's Spotify or whatever. You can subscribe to our podcast, and you can actually download the messages and the services every week and actually follow along. So we have an online presence that reaches around the world, and this is something that we did not expect, but we have 250 plus downloads every single week on our podcast. We have people listening all over Oklahoma, which is our main location, but every single state in the United States has downloads from Bethel Community Church. We also reach into the world through Brazil and Australia and India, China, Mongolia. We have places all over the world where people are downloading and listening and following, and then they'll actually interact with us. And so it's a pretty cool thing. I remember Taylor, Logan, and I were looking at it one day last year, and we had someone from Slovakia, and I was like, who is that in Slovakia? Well, then that just grew from there, just like went off, and we have an amazing presence there. We also today are testing our church online, and so if you're not here, we want you to connect with us through our website, also through Facebook or YouTube. But when you're not here, you can stay connected. I think one of the things that we're going to see in 2020 is that when you're here or you're not here and you connect online, you feel like you're here. And so you could not be here or be here. We want you to be here because there's something about being here. But if you're not here for some reason, you're on a trip or you're on vacation, we want you to connect online, and you can do that through our website. And we're really excited about what God's doing online. I think online is going to be a part of our community church that's going to impact people all over the world. And I shared with you the pastor in India that uses our resources, and he connects every single week, and he is super encouraged. He's by himself in a village trying to reach people for Christ, and every single week he's encouraged by Bethel Community Church. Also, community groups. Our community groups are kind of a big thing that we do every single week during the spring and the fall, and many of the groups stay connected. But community groups, this year we had our own resource called Shah Jah, which is a discipleship course with the lives of Elijah and Elisha. And so we wrote our own, filmed it. Taylor did a great job on that, and it was really exciting to share, and that kind of changed the course of our church in 2019. Also, in September, we had something called Edify Conference, and the Edify Conference was for pastors and their wives. We had 97 pastors and their wives right here in this room, and they came from all over the city, all over the state, even as far as Arkansas and Texas, and they came. We got to encourage them. Being a pastor is difficult, and pastors need someone to love them and encourage them, and so this Edify Conference through Bethel Community Church impacted dozens and dozens of pastors where they took another step in ministry, and so you guys had a part in that. They said when they left, they said, man, we felt so loved, we felt so encouraged, and we have the best volunteers in the world, and I believe that here at Bethel Community Church. It's an awesome thing to be a part of. Jeremiah, why don't you come up? This is Jeremiah James. If you don't know Jeremiah, a.k.a. the Hugger.
Yeah.
All right, so Jeremiah, why don't you have a seat? Jeremiah is going to tell us what has 2019 done in your life, Jeremiah, with Bethel?
Well, 2019 at Bethel has kind of helped me refocus on trusting God a lot more in my life. I'm a pretty self-reliant person. I do things my way or the highway. And sometimes I believe I can do it better, so don't get in my way. I'm going to do it. And honestly, it has helped me trust God more with every detail of my life, whether it's becoming about to be a father, having a small version of my wife, Carolyn, and I watch what we do is kind of terrifying because I cut corners, so do as I say, not as I do. Will be the motto for 2020, I'm sure. But also just kind of trusting God with things that are beyond my control. specifically my mother, who passed away just a month ago. I always wanted to have her around longer because your mom, you know, your parents are the ground which you build everything on. And definitely trusting God more with what His will is ultimately been the biggest challenge of my life. But it's also been the best because I can realize how good God is. And if you trust Him, yeah, that's the best choice that you make in your life is just trusting God because He's ultimately going to know what's best for you, your family, your loved ones. And that's what 2019 has been for me, has been trusting God with everything.
Awesome. And you're involved in community groups. We just talked about that a second ago. So what is the community groups at Bethel? What has that meant to you during this process with your mom and with your baby and all that that's happened this year?
It's been a very loving family who knows all about you, hot mess or not. So it's been very accepting and kind and loving. And whether it's a meal from a restaurant or, you know, just you're exhausted and people want to help out, it's been tremendous.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If you don't know Jeremiah and you meet him twice, you'll get a hug.
Sure.
Maybe not the first time, but at least the second time you'll
Shake
get a hug.
hands first, hug second.
Yeah. So, and if you don't like to be hugged, he wears you down to where every Sunday you're looking for the hug. And I've actually seen, I saw today in the lobby, people looking for you for a hug.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an awesome thing, Jeremiah. Now, if you don't want a hug, you know, just go like this and he'll bypass you sometime, you know, I don't
That's
know.
not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, he'll eventually make it happen, and you'll actually like it. I don't know how he does it. It's
I'm
some
like
magic.
Liam
you know?
Neeson in Taken. I have a skill set, and that skill set is making people like hugs. And I will find you, and I will
And
hug
you have
you.
these like 10 feet arms
Yeah,
that get people.
exactly.
Yeah,
The long arm of
so,
the law.
so the funniest thing is when I saw you do this with Taylor, he's not a hugger,
No.
but you wore him down
Yeah.
fairly quickly,
Yep.
right? And so now he's like a little child. He comes running to you with a hug.
Exactly.
and-
Loving
So I run
embrace.
to the Father. I mean, no, I don't do that.
I'm not the father.
Okay. How long did it take you to wear Pastor Taylor down?
A day.
A day. So that was
Yeah.
quick. I mean, that's a miracle.
I snuck
So-
it up on him. Actually grabbed him from behind and picked him up. And that's just kind of breaking the will. It's like a wild
Breaking
horse.
the
Gotta
will.
break it. Gotta break it.
So if you need a hug or just some encouragement, come find Jeremiah. He's a very,
Absolutely.
very encouraging guy. We're so glad that you're a part of Bethel. Jeremiah, you and Carolyn are such a blessing to us. And let's give Jeremiah a round of applause. So, I like to hug, but not like Jeremiah. He's definitely got me beat. So let's remember, okay, so we're talking about these remembrance stones from Joshua. And it's good to remember, and it's good to remember where we came from. It's good to remember who we are, and it's good to remember whose we are. The last thing that I want us to experience in 2019 as our church kind of family comes to an end is I want us to remember what Jesus did for us on the cross, what Jesus did for us as he gave his life so that we could have life. Remember what Jesus did when he was buried, and then 3 days later, man, he rose out of the grave through his own power. And I don't know what you're going through right now. I don't know what you're experiencing, but what God wants you to know before the year's up is that God loves you in spite of anything, in spite of what you think, in spite of who you are, in spite of where you've been from or where you've come from. But there's something about Jesus' love as we remember what he did for us on the cross, his blood shed for us, his body broken for us. And I want us to do that together. I want us to celebrate together as a family everything that God has done because, things may look dark or maybe things look up. But Jesus is constant and he's always there. Something we've said over the last few months is that Jesus doesn't love a future version of you. He loves who you are right now. And he actually left paradise, came to this earth. He found us because he loves us, and then he rescued us. He called us. And that is a miraculous thing that our world needs to know. And so if you're here this morning and there's a longing in your heart to know Jesus, I encourage you to open your life to him and let him come in and change you and make you new. If there's a longing in your soul to know him, please know him. This morning we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to transition into a time of remembrance of Jesus and what he did for us on the cross. There's 5 stations around the auditorium, and when you're ready, I just want you to take a minute and remember what Jesus did for you. Men, just lead your families to the table and celebrate together what Jesus did for you on the cross 2,000 years ago. It never gets old. No matter how far we go along, it's always about Jesus. It's not about us. It's about him. It's not about us. It's about others. And so as we celebrate together what Jesus did on the cross, I want us to take a moment, and I want us to reflect. I want us to pray. and then we'll lead into this time of communion. Let's pray. God, as we come into your presence this morning, we are truly grateful. God, not that everything has been perfect in 2019. We could name a lot of things that went wrong. But one thing we can name is that you've been constant, and you've been pursuing us, and you've loved us exactly where we are. And God, you've called us to something better. You've called us to a better life. As we gather as our family this last time in 2019, God, I pray that you would just make yourself real and plain. Lord, give us that joy and that peace that's hard to describe, that only can come from you. And as we celebrate one last time this year, your sacrifice on the cross, your death, your burial, and then your resurrection, we look forward to that day that you call us home, that we get to celebrate for eternity what you've done for us. God, thank you so much. We are so grateful for 2019. We're grateful for second chances. We're grateful for 100 chances. And we'll continue to praise you because of who you are. As you're ready, go ahead and stand. If you're here towards the front, go to the front tables. If you're in the back, go to the back tables. And we'll take a few minutes and celebrate together what God has done for us 2,000 years ago and what he continues to do with us today.